be around here someplace. I looked it up in the directory.
All right, Shep, I grant you this place may be different, but must it be invisible?
Now, listen, I swear I hear music. Don't you hear music? Now, listen. Shh. Now, what's that? Look. Drums. Hey, hello down there. Hello, Zodiac. Hello down. Hey, this is it. See there? Okay, I'll bet this is it. There, a trail. Follow the yellow line and keep going and keep going. And there. And an arrow. Success. Come on.
Are you sure you wouldn't rather go back to El Morocco?
Oh, come on. This would be fun.
Good evening.
Oh.
Providing the signs are favorable, the Zodiac welcomes you. Date of your birth, sir?
March 12th.
Sign of the fish. The time is favorable.
The fish.
Shep, this is the scrabby end.
The night is favorable, auspicious for love, pleasure, entertainment. Go right down.
Oh, thanks. Come on.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Zodiac Lounge. Can everyone hear me? No, this is not an insurrection. I haven't taken over the show. My name is Scott Harney, and I am the author of the book Esoteric Guide to New York, and also one of the founders of Esoteric NYC. Our host, Anthony Russell, will join us soon. Anthony was gracious enough to allow himself to be interviewed this evening. Anthony was the owner of the original Zodiac Lounge. No, not the fictional one in the movie Bell Book and Candle, but the one that was located on the Upper West Side for a number of years. I think it's really important right now that we go back in history. Anthony, when I met him 20 years ago, I was working on my book, Esoteric Guide to New York City. And it was one of those magical Saturday afternoons when I was walking in the Upper West Side and I felt attracted to a storefront. And I walked in and it turned out to be the Zodiac Lounge. And that's how I first met Anthony. And we've been, though we lost touch over the years, I mean, it's been almost 20 years and we've been friends since then. And now, thanks to technology, we are able to bring back the Zodiac Lounge virtually. The Zodiac Lounge, as we're going to find out this evening, played a large role in, well, of course, Anthony's life, but in the lives of many of his students as well. It became a hangout and a place of learning in New York City, and really one of the most significant spiritual establishments really in the history of esoteric New York. So this is a spiritual story. It's one of hope. It's one of resurrection and spiritual renewal. And without further ado, I'm going to bring Anthony on.
And welcome to the Zodiac Lounge. My God.
I was going to be on the other side of the...
it's weird. I apologize to every single one of my guests. Being a guest is nerve-wracking. So hopefully I'll learn what it's like to be in your seat when I bring you on, and I might be a little easier to get along with. But thank you, Scott, for doing this. This is terrific.
No problem. And in honor of the Zodiac Lounge, I will have a drink. Let me finish my water.
You never know what's in my A&W. It could be a little Jack, could be a little anything in there.
So the Zodiac Lounge, let's just start a little bit about the history. I mean, it began originally, as you said, really as a fundraiser for particularly young children, and it was part of a spiritual sort of deal that you made, and we'll get into that. So originally you opened in 1997, and I remember back when I interviewed you, you said it was a place to purchase objects of profound transformation and senseless beauty. And yeah, and it really was. I mean, it was a stunning. I mean, the energy there that you created was magical, and really you manifested the Zodiac Club from the movie. You know, Bell Book and Candle. That whole magic, and you would people come into the basement to get tarot readings and spiritual guidance from you, and also to learn from you. But tell us a little bit about what also happened there at night. As you said, it turned
It
into
was a
sort of a speakeasy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I opened the store very reluctantly. It wasn't supposed to be a store. I was recovering from a devastating illness that literally took my life several times. And then I found out that I wasn't going to stay dead, which really pissed me off because now I'm living on the Upper West Side with no money. And I had to do a lot of soul searching. So I went way, 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 way down into my own unconscious. And I figured out there were 4 things that were distressing me. It was fear, it was shame, it was enormous emotional pain, and a feeling of ridiculous vulnerability. So I started 4 paintings. I figured I would get those energies out of me and onto canvas so I wouldn't have to live with them. But the problem is that every time I walked through my living room, I saw the 4 easels and I relived every minute of it. So I was shopping one afternoon and I found out that there was this, I don't even know if I can call it a basement. It was like a cellar. It was just cinder. It wasn't even cinder block. It was just plaster, horrible, burnt out bomb shelter kind of feel. And I figured, well, this is as close to the underworld as I can get. And I moved my paintings in there and continued working on them. And it was a pleasure to be able to leave all of that vulnerability behind and come home without having to face it while I was recovering. And people were coming in trying to buy my paintings and I was throwing them out. And I was like, no, get out of here. This isn't a store. What the hell do you think you're doing? Well, the door's open. It's like, well, there's turpentine over there. So yeah, I need ventilation. And when I finally recovered from that, when I finally got all the emotions that were blocking me out onto canvas, I started realizing that my life had just enormously changed and it was empty. There was rubble. My whole life before was just in smithereens. So I had to start filling it in. And I figured, well, you got your paintbrushes, so start painting other things, powerful images. And I started doing a lot of iconic representations of archetypes, a lot of gods and goddesses of the underworld. I did this fabulous pastel crayon of Pombagira, and I slapped her on a piece of wood and varnished over her, and Hecate, and all these chthonic, Hades. And then I thought, I should just turn this into a store because people were coming in, they wanted to buy the art. The energy in the art was so powerful and so celebratory that I was happy to give it away to people and have them bring it to their home. So I opened it as an art gallery, very much like the gallery in the movie Bell Book and Candle that I saw when I was 8. And I had other artists bring their work as well as my own. I made replicas of Hittite jewelry, just beautiful, beautiful things. But the people that were supporting it wanted a metaphysical store. So I had to roll with it, turn it into that. And I hated being there. I would often close at 2. I would open at 2 in the afternoon. If people would get on my nerves, I would throw them all out. Can I buy this first? No, you can have it. Get the fuck out of here. And throw them out, go to the movies, go day drinking, whatever, go to the park, go down by the water. But at night is when it came alive. That's after business hours ended at 9 p.m. At 9:15, people started trickling in, and it slowly became a speakeasy. And it was open till 4, 5, 6 in the morning sometimes.
So it's interesting that it is almost like a chthonic experience. I mean, you literally went into like they used to do back in the day. You went into a cave. It's a virtual cave, and you came out the other side.
I had to heal.
Right.
I had to totally heal. And it just all transformed through my art. And I remember one day I was painting, and then all of a sudden the paint started pushing back. And I'm like, well, damn, we're onto something here. But it was a tremendous experience. We did fundraisers. We had circuit parties, all raising money for the very old, the very young, and the very ill. That was my promise that I made when I decided that I would come back to life. But,
you mentioned back when I first met you that you had that there was a sort of at a crossroads, and you were given a choice. And I think it's really important for a lot of us now. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that experience spiritually.
Sure. I had several resuscitations. There were 7 and 6 months. The commute was a pain in the ass. Coming back was really horrible. And then afterwards, the internet had just been invented. Thank you, Al Gore. And I put something out there, and about 3,000 people said, yes, I've been resuscitated. But when I asked for documentation, I got a little bit over 1,000. And we all had similar experiences, the universal experiences that we had. And if anybody's wondering, yes, there is consciousness after physical death. We all landed in what smelled like a forest. It was pitch black. We just knew that we were in the woods or something. And we were all barefoot, and we all walked a path. My particular experience, I was using the soles of my feet as my eyes. Wow. And for some reason, I knew that there were 3 choices I had, but I simultaneously knew that it didn't matter which one I took, that they were all going to lead me to the same destination. So I started walking, and every time I felt myself feeling rocks that I was off, it was like packed dirt beneath my feet. Every time I started feeling rocks, I thought you might be on the edge of a cliff. And then the other voice in me says, well, you're dead already, so what do you care? But I just wanted to stay on the path. And I remember thinking a little light would be nice. And then all of a sudden, these 2 hands came from behind me. One had a knife, and I knew that the knife was for protection, and the other one had a torch. And then suddenly I had a companion, and it was a woman, and she was wearing this like shimmery orange robe with a hood, and every now and then I'd get a glimpse of her face in the torchlight. And sometimes she looked young, and sometimes she looked old, and sometimes she looked middle-aged, and I really didn't care because I was dead. And I thought I was dead. Well, I was for a little while. And we were sort of talking, and she says, I said, I know that there's other dead people around me because I can feel them, because I was a medium when I was alive. And she affirmed that. And I said, well, who are they? And she said, do I know any of them? She said, yes, you do. I said, well, let me see them. She said, if you decide to stay, you'll meet them. But you're lucky that you have a choice. I said, what do you mean? She said, you can go back. And I thought, I said to her, what's in it for me? And she went like this with her arm. And I saw me, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little emotional. I saw me holding babies, working with kids, in rooms that I later recognized were hospice rooms, supporting those who were dying, in hospitals, doing what I could to help them. And I thought, well, that would be cool, but I'm not going to let her know that yet. I'm going to see if I can get some more information out of her. And as I was thinking that, I felt like I was flying backwards about 80 miles an hour and hit a brick wall. And then the next thing I know, I'm looking up into my doctor's eyes. And then I looked down and I started bitching about these 2 big red marks from the paddles. I said, how am I supposed to go at it? He says, you're not going anywhere. So the next day I willed myself back, and I had a very similar experience. And there's a lot of details. It would take an entire show, and maybe I'll do a show on mediumship and explain my experience of consciousness after death. But the point is that I promised this woman, who I later found out her identity, I promised her that I would come back on the provision. She said, you will have to care for the very old, the very young, and the very ill. So I said, okay. And it took me 2 years to recover, because after I healed myself because of my vanity, because I was 71 pounds, I had no hair, I had grayish yellow skin, and my friends are such bitchy queens. I'm like, somebody's going to lay me out and nobody can see me like this. So I woke up my hair follicles and put some meat on my bones. And I remember saying to my doctor, Andrew, you're right, it was Hecate. I said to my doctor, all right, I'm ready. He said, well, you missed the boat. And just imagine for a minute, this is nothing spiritual. This is just being a human. You finally embrace your death. You're good to go. That's hard to do. And then you find out that after you paid $3.5 million worth of hospital bills, well, Sotheby's and Christie's is taking all of your belongings and auctioning them off. You're going to live, and you're broke. And now what? So I wouldn't get out of bed. And my friend Leon said, what's it going to take to get you out of bed? And I said, a damn good party. So he threw a party, and I went, and the party sucked. So I just went berserk, and I said, "You want to see a party? I'll show you a party." And I did a fundraiser for the Ryan White Foundation, and that was a party. And that was the first Zodiac Lounge event. It was at a club called 511, which is no longer there. It was a mob joint on Amsterdam and 85th. And it was brilliant because the inside of this club looked like the Zodiac Club in the movie. And we had a jazz band and photographers everywhere and really fascinating people. So once a month, I would do a fundraiser. And then it's like, okay, you have this space you're painting out of, and now you're over your bullshit. You're over your own BS. You're painting happy things. You're painting powerful things now. So now you got to fill in this big hole that your life has become. There's nothing in it. Everything died when that part of my life came to an end. And what's interesting, I just experienced it again recently. I lost a partner of 30 years. And 30 years of my life, I'm finding out, had to die with him because every decision I made for 30 years was informed by my status as a partner. And now I don't have a partner, so I have all these holes in my life and things are filling it in. And one of the things was your invitation to host this show. So strangely, the Zodiac Lounge is in my life again. And we can learn, we can gather.
Right. Personally, yes.
I probably went on too long about that. But
no, it was fascinating. And I recall you telling me also one of the things you did to regain health was that you did a series of rituals to the goddess Aphrodite.
Yeah, because I didn't look well enough to die. Like I said, I looked horrible. And I know my friends, and they would have laid me out just to have a laugh. I wanted, closed coffin because I looked like, I really looked bad. I mean, think of Whitney Houston when she was skeletal, except minus the wig. I did not look good at all. And I said, I've got to at least make myself look decent enough to be laid out. And so I found one of the things that I had compiled over the years. I had written this course in 1971 called Foundations of Magic, and they were all intact temple documents. And one of them was from the Temple of Aphrodite, and I had it translated from its original language through Greek, Latin, German into English. And it was a ritual for pulchritude. And I remember I had to do it every day. I said, you're going to do this every day for 2 hours. And the first day I wanted out after 5 minutes, but I committed to 2 hours, and I had a kitchen timer. And once I heard a ding, I couldn't stop fast enough. But after about 2 weeks, I wanted it to go on longer, but I still stopped after 2 hours. But that's when I started making little changes in my life. And I saw my body, my muscles coming back, my skin turned, excuse me, a very odd color, but it looked like I had a little bit of a sunburn, but that was better than grayish yellow, Hep C yellow. Hair was back on my head, and I made a video of me in a Speedo with black angel wings and a martini in one hand and a lit Dunhill in the other, and a pair of Ray-Bans with white Ray-Bans with palm trees glued to the sides, and that was going to be played at my repast, as I spent all the money on paying my bills and also making some donations and having this video made. I've got to find this video and have it translated into digital. I see Jane Chabatari in the audience, very dear friend of mine that goes way back to the Zodiac Lounge. And she still has the Aphrodite oil I made after translating from the Temple of Erice. Yes, Aphrodite Ericina. And Sicily.
It's a moving story, but in healing others, you healed yourself.
That's how it works.
Right.
I've always been fascinated by mythology. I went back to school for many years. Even in my 60s, I was in school and studying psychology. Human behavior fascinates me. And there's something called personal mythology. It's something that's really helpful. It was helpful for me to understand who I am, and it helped me when I'm training people to keep them who they are instead of becoming a carbon copy of me or a little automaton soldier in my army with no brains. I don't want that when I'm training people. But you have to think of your first two heroes, the first male and female that you put on a pedestal when you were a child. Mine was my Aunt Millie, who was also a psychic. So the family thought she was nuts and they just sort of laughed her off, but she knew it and she didn't care. She was always very present, very loving. very helpful, very supportive. And the other one was Batman as opposed to Superman. Now, I was born in 1952, so everybody was into Superman and the Eisenhower era, you better be in the light or you're going to be suspect. But I went for Batman, and I realized that I was attracted to nonconformity. And surely enough, I grew up to be more of an iconoclast than anything else. But understanding that part of myself helped me walk those steps to create that wellness and to study mythology. And in the myth of Chiron, the wounded healer, I'll do a really short story. He was born to parents who rejected him. Can I identify with that? And he became a healer, also an identification. And then one day, he was making poison for Apollo's darts, and he stuck himself. And he was only half immortal. His father was Kronos. His mother was some wood nymph that turned herself into a linden tree because she couldn't deal with having a son who was not mainstream. And he was in agony. And he was also keeping he was the village healer. He was teaching them tarot. He was reading tarot for them. He was teaching them astrology. He taught them everything he was doing for them because he just had to go. He just wanted to go. He wanted to die. So he empowered everybody in the village to do everything he knew how to do so that they could take care of themselves after he left. And then he called his father. He was like, yo, Pop, do me a solid, take me up there. He says, well, I can't put you on Olympus because you're only half immortal, but what I can do is I can make you a constellation. And that's how the constellation of the Centaur came about. So the moral of that story is when you're inflicted with a mortal wound, you have three choices. You can either stick your head in the sand and let it get you. The second choice is you can try to inflict the same wound on anyone who comes near you, much like a wild animal who's caught in a trap is going to snap and try to bite the person freeing them. Or you can heal others with the same wound. And then by reflection, become healed yourself.
Right.
Yes, by doing that, I was healing myself.
Now, you had a very interesting background prior to your illness. You were in the music industry.
I was also a party monster.
Party monster.
And everybody says, oh, that life's going to kill you. And maybe it did, for all I know.
But and also you grew up in Manhattan.
Yeah, I'm a native.
And you told me you began reading actually in Central Park when you were a teenager.
Tarot reading, yes. I was trained how to read tarot. And I would go to the park because if I did it in the house, I got screamed at. And so we go to Central Park by the Delacorte Theater. And I would practice reading on a bench. And then somebody came up and says, can I have a reading? And I was like, no, get the fuck out of here. I was very reluctant to read for other people. It's kind of juxtaposed that that's what I do today and have been doing ever since. But that's how I started picking up some clientele.
And some of those clients you still have, you said.
I have some of them, and I have some of their children, and now their grandchildren. But I still hear from them. What I like about my clientele is that they're not junkies. They don't call me every week, and if they did, I would just cut them loose. I just heard from someone last month that I haven't heard from for 6 years. And I was like, what? And she says, well, you were good. I said, well, I haven't heard from you. Well, I didn't need you. I was like, that's perfect, because that is the kind of people that I like to work with.
And you then you were a songwriter in the music industry. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I wrote a lot of pop and R&B, and then I transitioned into Worldbeat so I could travel. And I was an independent writer, so that was a little tough, but I had myself the worst. Oh my God, the worst person in the world is my attorney. She knew where everybody's bodies were buried, so she got me deals that were unbelievable. But I got to live in different places and experience different things. So I was in Haiti to learn the bata, the sacred drumming, and I ended up getting initiated into voodoo. So that because they had to train me to teach me the sacred rhythms. And then I took those bata beats and I put them behind vaguely Western music. And it was 120 beats a minute, so it was trance, actually. And people were celebrating the Loa without even knowing it on the dance floors. It was so cool. It was so.
Well, rock and roll originally began that way. A lot of the beats were actually tribal.
Absolutely.
Beats that would bring that energy in. Interesting. So tell us a little bit about the lounge, the speakeasy part of the lounge, because I think a lot of people remember you for that as well as a tour.
Most of them do remember me for that, because what happened is I so hated having to be nice to people all day. And because, I was on a very busy street. So if somebody missed their bus, there wasn't another one for 20 minutes. So they would come down to a curious little place and kill time. And it's like, time is more precious to me than money, especially now, since I went through that whole financial change and losing my life. Nothing. I will piss my time away like a drunken sailor, but I will not waste it. I will spend it unbelievably, ridiculously, but I will never waste a minute. So to waste my time is the worst thing you can do. And also, anyone who knows me knows that I'm one of those people, if you get a couple of drinks in me, I become very jolly. I mean, I'm like one of those happy drunks. I mean, I've gone up to people that I've put in the emergency room, hey, baby, come here, it's all good. And they're like freaking out. It's like, no, 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 it's so good to see you. Where have you been? It's like in the ER, bitch. But so then I would start like a glass of wine when things started getting on my nerves. And then finally, winding down, people would come in. Other store owners, other psychics that I knew, people that were interested, people that may have taken courses, like one-shot courses from me or something. And we would hang out, and then drumming would start, because I had all these drums from Senegal that I was selling. And one thing turned to another, and then Deborah Joy, who's in chat, will remember this. She had the store on the other side of the building, because you looked at the building, there was a store on the left, store on the right, and then in the center was a hallway. That was like the cellar. It was like the world. We used to refer to it as the world between worlds, because it was so spooky. So what I did is I cleaned it up, and I changed at 10 o'clock, all the light bulbs got changed to red light bulbs. I put little votive lights on all the tributaries. We set up little tables for two back there. Anything went. It was the coolest thing. So every night there was a speakeasy. And I remember one night, Liam Neeson was in The Crucible on Broadway. And that he was leaving, his cast was leaving. No, he was leaving the cast, and he wanted to get he was putting gifts together for them. And I got a call, I think from his assistant, wanting to know if I carried voodoo dolls. I says, well, I have Greek puppets. They're kind of like voodoo dolls, but I make them from scratch out of birch branches. I will buy bales of birch branch. And then you have to wrap certain herbs in them with cut linen. And they're very animated. None of them are like the little, well, we wanted something uniform and cookie cutter, but thank you anyway. So later that night, it was like, it had to be a Wednesday night, because at that point, the drum circles became every Wednesday night. And all of a sudden, all 7 feet of Liam Neeson shows up, and I only had 7-foot ceiling. So he walked in and he was crouched, and I recognized him. And I just walked up and said, oh, hi, Liam, come in, have a seat. And I sat him at this little table with 2 theosophists. I figured that should be an interesting conversation. And now he'll know what he's in for. And he actually got into a very animated conversation with him. And then somebody picked up a djembe and started doing a heartbeat. And then my congas got dragged out, and people were riffing on those. And then he picked up my bongos and started playing the bongos and stayed for a couple hours. Got a little tipsy, and when he was leaving, he says, thank you. This is like being a person. And I said, well, that's what it's all about. No, everybody is the same here. It was a magical place. I see my friend Rohan in the audience.
Yeah, we're going to bring people on in a little bit for who have memories of the lounge. So if you do have a memory you want to share, just hit us up in the chat.
Yeah, and
we have a couple of questions.
Camera, yes, so we know.
Camera, yes, right. So we have one question from Dominic. Can you share some techniques with the audience regarding how one can cultivate and activate the bicameral mind?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big part of the foundation of everything that I teach. The bicameral mind, Latin bicamera, 2 rooms. It basically refers to the conscious and the unconscious mind. Now, something that I'm a stickler for is science. So in 1971, when I first wrote my lesson plans, it was all about magic, because we didn't have explanations for how these things work. And then as years have gone by, we've learned a lot more in quantum science. So we do know that subatomic particles respond to the way they're perceived. So we're finding a lot more scientific explanation. It's almost like finding the man behind the curtain when you really wanted to see the Wizard of Oz, but I'm fascinated by the man behind the curtain. So the bicameral mind is basically a way to access the unconscious mind. And I bring people on a visualization journey. You're climbing up a hill. It's as steep as you imagine, and it may be different every time you approach it. You get to the top of a hill, there's a house. Your house is always going to be the same, but it's not the same as anybody else's. It could be stone, it could be wood. You touch it, I make you experience every bit of it. You open the front door, you walk in. You're in a room that looks very much like your home. It could be your living room, could be your bedroom or whatever. You look out the window, you see the same things you see on your street. Then there's another door in the center of the room, of the wall, and you open that, and it's a very dark room, and it's got a flat, something with a flat surface. It could be a rock, it could be a table, it could be an altar. It's just a very dark, sparse room, and then a tiny little blue flame. It could be a blue votive glass with a candle in it, or a magical blue flame, or you can get into Strega and use the fireball with the blue flame brandy in it. But that would represent the light of the unconscious. And then you straddle the door, and you pay closer attention to the dark room, and as you're gathering the information, you will it through your body into the light room. So you're basically bringing information from the unconscious to the conscious. And you can go back and forth like that. It's a great help when you're trying to reach other realms, or when you're trying to get past the block of your own. That's about as simple and as an explanation as I could give here without going into like ridiculous theory. But I do have a collection of essays written by scientists about the big debate. Because the question was, why were there so many miracles in biblical times and there aren't any today? Well, because as a culture, these people had an ecstatic relationship with their Godhead as opposed to a liturgical one. Once the Bronze Age began, everything became militarized and controlled. So suddenly there were authority figures, and all of us had no power. But back in biblical times and BC, and even early into the Common Era, people had a one-on-one relationship with all of their gods, and they would say, I'm bringing you this offering, Hecate, I'm bringing you honey, barley, and mastic, because I want you to do this. But if you don't, I'm going to bury your statue upside down, outside of town, facing east, and you're never going to get worshipped again. They would handle with them. They would threaten them. It wasn't the same kind of reverent prayer that we've been taught to use. So because of that one-on-one ecstatic relationship, you were able to manifest. Now we know that it has to do with focusing so intensely, like you do in quantum theory, to create an actual event in your linear timeline. Because when you're working with bicameral mind, you're not in linear time. You're between, there's no time whatsoever. So you create something, and then by the time your own personal timeline arrives at that point, that will manifest in front of you. I may have created the Zodiac Lounge that way. I don't know. So I hope that answered your question. And
this is it's a good jumping off point to talk about your the fact that the Zodiac Lounge also was a teaching. It played a teaching role.
Oh yeah.
And you had a course called The Fundamentals of Magic.
Foundations of Magic.
Foundations. Yeah. I'm sorry. Actually, I made a mistake in my book then. So the Foundations of Magic, and we have exciting news. This is probably a good time to say that you will be resurrecting this course online on Monday evenings, right? Yeah. I believe it.
A date to be determined, because I did have a conversation with Mark Tangelo, who owns Astro West Minerals, and he suggested that if I wanted to, and people were comfortable coming out of their homes and gathering in a place, I could teach it in the Metaphysical Well-Being Center that I ran downstairs before COVID shut us down. So we could simulcast live.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
That would be great.
I would just need a little bit of lead time to present it, but I can do it either. I can do it right away here, or we can wait a couple of weeks. And
I think that's exciting. It's how many courses is that?
There's 10 lessons.
10 lessons.
They were originally designed as a series. It was originally what was called outer court training, where you get people who are interested in this kind of material, and they would come every week. And then by the end of it, I did it once a month back then, because an ancient creed said, whenever you have need of anything, gather once in the month, and better it be when the moon is full. So every full moon, I would teach a class and teach them. And they had 4 weeks to implement it, to learn it, to mess with it, to have it blow up in their faces, to master the technique, and then come back again. I would always start with about 35 to 40 people, but by the end of the 10th lesson, I was usually with around 10 to 15. And those were the people that were invited to continue private training. Right. And there's some people right in chat that Angela has attended. the private training. If Tom is here, I don't know, he hasn't chatted anything, but he may be in the audience for all I know. There's a few people here that took that course. And then it's just 3 elevations, and then you go on your own and you start your own group if you want to. You just get out of my hair.
It's exciting. I mean, the fact
It's fun to do, and it's very, because it turned into a course in self-empowerment. In the beginning, it was magical texts that I got from the reference library at the museum. And then as science continued to make discoveries on how these things actually happened, it became more and more about self-empowerment and self-healing.
Well, we're excited, so look out for that. I think we're going to start in a couple of weeks, maybe. But we'll send out an email to everyone when the course is set. That would be great.
Yeah.
We have a question from Rowan. I'm just joining, and my question is: do you feel like there is life after death? And if so, how does the average person who questions this know that this is true?
Excellent question. And I'm going to give you a very provocative answer, because this is the way I train my students. If you listen to the replay, you'll hear me tell my story about my physical death and my resuscitation and my subsequent reluctant staying around. But look, I go through this a lot with students and also with friends and other colleagues. We should only believe and commit to what we know for sure. Okay? I have been dead. I did witness consciousness afterwards. So I know for sure that there is consciousness after physical death, but I'm urging you to not take my word for it. You can choose to believe things that you don't know for sure if they make sense to you. And that is determined by your criteria. Mine is if somebody shows me enough research, if I go squirreling around on the internet or the library or whatever I feel like doing that day to find something out, I'm going to come up with a whole bunch of data. None of it is going to be 100% one way or the other, but there are certain things that are going to be resonant with me, and I will believe in those things, but I will remind myself that I am choosing to believe in these things until I am informed otherwise, and then I will change a very strong committed opinion once I'm informed with more knowledge that backs up something else. So you have to believe, faith is believing where logic tells you not to. We need to have, how many times have you clung on to the hope that you're going to do something, and just that faith that you would succeed brought you across the finish line? So yes, you can believe in it, but remember that you're choosing to believe in it. The only way you'll know for sure is when you eventually bite the big one and find yourself over there. And Rohan, trust me, it's not all it's cracked up to be. I was a little underwhelmed. It's like, this ain't no party. Yeah.
I think I'm going to stop bringing some people on. I'm going to bring on Reverend Deborah Joy, if that's okay.
I would love to
memories
see her.
Of the.
She owned the store next to me. And I'll say it ahead of her. She doesn't have to expand on this, but we had a falling out, and I knew that we were eventually going to come to terms with each other. But there was someone that was being very misleading, and I had enough trust in her. And strangely, 25 years later, we reconnected, and it's just so nice to see her and hear her voice again. So yeah, bring her on.
Yeah, I just brought her on. Let's see. We're having a problem lately bringing people on to Crowdcast. It says accepted and connecting. But any event, while we're waiting, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about the evenings, like what a typical evening at the Zodiac was like.
Okay. People would start showing up around 9, 10 o'clock. They knew there's Deborah Joy.
There you go.
They
Hi, Deborah.
knew the rules, and I'll get back to that later. Hey, sweetie. Too many.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
It's
You
so
look
nice
fabulous.
to see you again. You look great. You're in Florida now?
I'm in Florida.
It's like no degrees up here. I hate you.
Listen, I've got an extra bedroom. You're welcome anytime.
I'm packing. So talk about the Zodiac Lounge. What was your perspective as my neighbor and fellow lunatic?
Okay, we were all lunatics at that time. And
it was the 90s.
What is that my business ran from morning until evening. So all the fun started after I closed up my store, because then I had to go home and take care of my own animals. But I know I was there in the evening, and I know it went till very late. But what I want to know, and there's a lot of freaky things that happened, didn't it?
Oh,
We
yeah.
had incarnate spirits in the
Oh,
basement.
yeah, they were everywhere.
They were everywhere. But what I want to know, what you can remember, the most freakiest thing that ever happened. One, like something really freaky that you could share with us.
Oh, that goddamn ghost that kept on slamming the big metal door. It pissed me right off. No, I mean, I don't blink. So people were jumping and freaking out, and I was just like, time to get your ghosty ass the fuck out of Dodge. Get out. You know, you're going to piss it off. It's like, well, it's pissing me off. I've had it with it. Yeah, there was somebody that kept on swinging that big metal door and slamming it. And I'm like, cut it out.
There was noises and the lights kept going off, and then we used to light so much sage that it would like you need oxygen, and there was so much stuff going on there, and it was really like between the worlds. It really was.
Do you remember that one
place.
The one sound that you and I hung black chiffon, we left the doors open and hung black chiffon, it was the veil between worlds. And people were just like losing it. It's like, what is that? I said, oh, that's just the veil is thin today. Don't mind her. Yeah.
But also, I don't know if you remember, I had broken up with someone and we gave him a mock funeral.
Yeah. In Riverside Park. Yeah, you did the voodoo funeral. That wasn't.
And I know who was there. I won't mention any names. Maybe they don't want their names mentioned. But that was kind of wild. That everybody on that block knew who. That was West 96th Street between Broadway and Amsterdam.
And people were afraid of us.
Oh, there was actually a burglary on that block one night. And the 3 stores that didn't get hit were the pizza shop. I didn't get hit, you didn't get hit, and the Botanica didn't get hit.
Yeah, Alicia's Botanica.
But they were afraid of all of us because they knew exactly what was going on.
Remember when I hung the wax figure upside down on my fence to scare people away? That'll make somebody think twice. That was pretty funny. And then the big fight I had with the church across the street when I crucified the Furby for Christmas.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah, they were not happy about that. And when Leon pushed me down Broadway in the pulpit, I bought a pulpit from the church thrift store because I'm
in touch with Leon on Facebook. He's still around.
I got to get a hold of him. But I dressed up like the Pope, and he pushed me down Broadway. We were stopping traffic. People were just like, "What is this?" And I'm just throwing little statues of Buddy Christ out into the crowd.
We just had. It was a very, very. It was a very special place in more ways than, and it was because of Anthony. I don't think anybody else could have pulled it off the way he pulled it off.
I don't know about that, but
no, don't be humble. Don't get humble on me now.
It took a pair of brass ones to run that place.
It certainly did, and they were heavy too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can still hear them clang, and I have them in the closet now because they got
All right, I'll let you get to the next
Thank
person.
you. Very nice to see you.
Thank you, Reverend Deborah. This is an interesting maybe stopping point on how. So you ran the lounge for many years. Why did you stop, and how did that happen?
Enron. It's weird. Enron. For some reason, my tarot clientele is not what you would think. I have people that work on Wall Street. They run hedge funds. I have really high-powered attorneys. I have some elected officials. I have people that work for government agencies, and I shouldn't even mention that. A lot of people that have a lot of capital. And I thought I was going to go down after 9/11 because of everything that happened. But for some reason, my business increased. People were really getting in touch with the fact that maybe there's something more than just my mundane corporeal life. And then Enron happened, and all my clients lost their money. So I just ran it for almost a year and a half, just breaking even. And then it just got to the point, it's like, why am I paying this rent and this Con Ed? And I mean, business telephone was never less than $350 a month. So I was working to pay the bills, and then I just stopped it. It wasn't fun anymore. It just
Right.
wasn't fun anymore. It was work, and there was no reward. So
So
oddly, it was
yeah.
because when Enron tanked, and
hmm
you know, the stock market went down. So that's why I
What it,
closed. Plus, there's
what
a
is there now?
now I think it's a massage parlor, which is
Okay.
great. It's still that
Well,
kind of underground speakeasy
yeah.
energy. Some of that went
I
on
get
down
that.
there too. I'm not gonna lie. You know, after 9 o'clock, all bets were off. I didn't care what happened in
Mm.
that back room. Just clean up after yourself, and we're good. I even had a collapsible hot tub at one point.
Wow. Wow.
I know, but it took so long to drain. I only used it 2 or 3 times.
Interesting. So, but I think it's interesting also to point out this was New York of old. I mean, this was the magic of New York
Yeah,
in, from the 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Now, I think right now with the current real estate market, it would be difficult to open up a physical Zodiac Lounge,
well,
correct?
it's not so much about the real estate market as much as it is about the intrusive laws that have been
Right.
written into
Mm-hmm.
law. There's security cameras everywhere. We have no rights. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think we barely have a Fourth Amendment left, and they're getting worse. Things are
Right.
getting worse. Now, I grew up in the 1950s. That was pretty restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, it was all about being more liberal in your thinking. And I find it very juxtaposed that
Right.
today's liberals are making things more stringent
Right.
than they were back during the Eisenhower era. You can't
Mm-hmm.
say anything without being publicly flogged and canceled. And it's like, dudes, what happened to us? You know, where
Right.
did all this openness go? Where did all this live and let live stuff go? It's like people are at each other's throats. So I think that plus the surveillance that's suddenly
Mm-hmm.
legal.
Right.
Um, Everybody's looking to make a buck, to fine you, to ticket you, to make revenue for the city that they can piss away on things that don't help anybody who lives here. So no, I don't think a place like that could open. But what could survive is just the speakeasy, as long as it's kept on the down low.
Kept on the download, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, unfortunately, I've noticed as also a business owner, yeah, right now it's difficult to have, particularly a bricks and mortar business
Yeah.
in the city because they're trying to generate revenue. It seems from you know these you're getting fines and
Yeah.
fines for this,
Well, they're
fines for
taking
that, and
people with
you
means
know,
and trying to squeeze
mhm,
every dime out of them. And at some point, they're going to go out of business. Then you're
right,
not going to have any tax dollars. I don't want to get into that.
yeah,
It's
but
just very disturbing. But no,
yeah,
unfortunately, I don't think anything like that can happen unless they really step on the gas and destroy everything. Because there's an underground move for every crisis like that. There's an underground movement that starts because people don't want to go down with the ship, and that's what I'm
right,
kind of thinking about right now. How can I? Maybe the Zodiac Lounge online can start a little community, and then the next thing you know, you're going to get a cryptic text about a 4-hour circuit party in some abandoned warehouse.
well,
Party long enough until the cops get there, and then you're gone. I just did
well,
that a
that's
couple of weeks ago. We did it. We did a
oh.
trial with a flash mob.
Oh, did you really? Okay, good.
Yeah,
Well, that would be great. We could do a sort of what do they call it? Pop up, a pop up
yeah,
Zodiac Lounge.
yeah.
I like that. I love
Well,
it.
that's how I started in the beginning. I would just do
Mhm.
monthly events and
Right.
take them on an off night.
Yeah.
Usually Monday or Tuesday nights. Every bar owner wants a crowd in because they don't get a crowd those nights.
Right. And I think it's important to also mention that this is a free speech zone, and we're trying to create also we're carving out a space for people to express themselves.
Right,
We
and
we
not
accept
worry.
all opinions, and there's no canceling anyone here. uh, and we have a question. Let's see. And this is from Jacqueline. Actually, let me try to bring Jacqueline on. How's that?
Sure.
Let me see. There you are. Hopefully her camera will work. If not, then I'll read her question. But yeah, this is a no judgment zone, as you said. It's you take your mask. Oh, here we go. Hi, Jacqueline. How are you?
Jacqueline.
You can ask in
Well,
person, and I'm gonna have a drink while you ask. In the Zodiac Lounge, it's Saturday night.
No, that's cool. Anthony, so you mentioned going back to school in your 60s and studying psychology.
Yeah.
How has that affected or shifted maybe when you do readings and being a medium? Has that had an effect on?
It hasn't had effect on my mediumship sitting. It has had an effect in my readings. As a matter of fact, that's the reason I went back to school. Because a lot of times my clients ask for advice, and I want to be trained to be able to give it to them in a way that's not going to let them run into a brick wall or just freeze up from too much information. I've learned to ask them questions to lead them to discover for themselves. The other thing is that I'm also an empath, so I can feel what my client is feeling, whether it's a telephone reading or face-to-face. So it means that I have to choose my words very carefully if I want them to get information that they're going to be able to utilize, instead of having them just arrest and freeze out of fear or trauma. So it helps me understand them better. And it's interesting, I see a picture, but behind that picture is about a 2-hour backstory. I see it inside my mind. So I know how to present the information that I'm finding, and to present challenges to a person, and how strongly I need to hold their feet to the fire, or how gently I need to coddle them, depending on where they're at. And that training helped me do it in a different way. It actually taught me that rather than make a statement, it is far more beneficial to ask a question and have the person discover it themselves. Otherwise, they depend on you for answers, and you're not really helping them out of their trauma. You're allowing this to be. I hope that answered your question.
No, it does. And before I started thinking about that, when you mentioned that, I was curious. You mentioned, being a medium before your near-death experience.
Yeah.
And then after that, do you feel that that capacity to see and straddle both worlds deepened or changed at all after that experience, or became?
No, it was about the same. It's just that I knew more about it. So I can actually push harder at the deceased, because I got to experience their realm firsthand. And a lot of times, just because somebody's dead doesn't mean that they've turned into this wonderful, evolved, sentient being. If you're an asshole when you're alive, you're going to be an asshole. You're going to be a dead asshole. And you're going to try to get over the same way you did until you've divested yourself of all of your ego functions. So they're going to play the same games. And then my training in psychology has helped me call them out on their BS. And, it's like, you're not fooling anybody. You can't tell me that, because I don't believe it. I've been there. So that has helped with my medium sitting, having visited that place. My academic training, maybe not. I never really tried to shrink a ghost's head, because I really don't want to. I mean, I'll deal with them when I get there, if they're still around, because they may be incarnated again. But my death experience has really enhanced my ability to sit as a medium, because I've also become a lot more compassionate, because I know what the process of dying is. I know that you face yourself when you're doing your life recall, and you're speaking to people, much like if one day we're all going to die, and when your time comes, if there was something you said to me in this live stream that affected me very strongly, you would see me as you're seeing me, you would hear your voice as you hear your voice now, but you would feel what your words made me feel. And then you would either have remorse or not.
Wow.
I went through that. There were some people that were horrible people. I mean, abusive people. And I did zing them real good. And my only regret was that I didn't zing them harder. But others, I did hurt unintentionally, and I felt terrible about it. And this is the trick, everyone. Ultimately, it's about forgiving yourself, okay?
Whoa.
And look, I don't entirely approve of everything I've ever said or done, or even the person I've been from time to time in this lifetime. But I'll tell you what, I had a really good time doing it. So I'm not going to try to kid. Party on. I'm not going to try to kid myself. But the things that were really egregious, by my estimation, I've suffered, I've regretted, I've apologized, I've forgiven myself, because I haven't made the mistake more than once. Well, one I did twice, but only because it was so much fun the first time. And then I thought, well, maybe I saw it wrong. Let me go do that again. And it's like, no, you were right. You suck, man. You really got to grovel for that one. And I did, and I never did it again. So ultimately, forgive yourself. And when someone that you know has passed that might have been unkind to you, please, the first thing you do, think of them. You'll feel them, and just tell them, I forgive you for everything you did to me. That's less you have to burn off. Now forgive yourself and move forward into your new life.
I mean, that's pretty deep, actually. Just what you described about that awareness and how you experience that. I didn't realize that. That's pretty
Yeah, you know, once you're there, it's like once you know the lay of the land, they can't lie to you.
fair enough.
Yeah.
The only other question I was curious about is that you obviously hosting a speakeasy and with other mediums, that just all of that incredible energy coming and going out of the Zodiac Lounge. I was curious if there's any particular experience. Obviously, I'm guessing it's magnified, right? With that many people that have that type of capacity being in the same space. Is there any experience that stands out?
No, I understand what you're talking about. That doesn't happen when a lot of mediums or psychics are in the same room. When that happens is when you're all focused on the same thing, and that's group work. That's something you learn during training. And what I do with my training is I try to keep people the same individual that they were when they came in. I do not want to change your nature. A lot of trainers will try to turn their little covens into an army of automatons that march in lockstep and do whatever they're told and not think for themselves. I'm the opposite. I love the idea that these people can retain their identity. And many times in real life, they could be at odds with another member, but when we had to work, we all found a way to come together and focus, and then that's how you manifest. And that's what's powerful, and that's what's self-empowering, to know that you can retain your own identity, your own thoughts, without having to conform, yet you can trust each other enough to know that you can do spiritual work together and manifest a result.
That's meaningful.
It
Well,
is to me and to my
I've known
students.
you for over 10 years, and you are easily one of my favorite people on earth. And I'd have to say this is one of my favorite shows. So thank you for having me live with the questions.
Well, I take that as a great compliment, because what you do for a living is, can you explain a little bit about your job?
Oh, my EA, being an assistant, I work events, I support a lot of executives in a large company, and I encounter a lot of people in different capacities. So, but all of my experiences with Anthony have been so incredibly cathartic. That's why I always tell people about him. I can't help it. I'm like,
That's because you're open too.
Well,
but I mean, you told me that your job was actually training people to do online webinars and things like that. And you have very kind things to say about this. So I thank you for that.
No. This show, by all means, I do that in my day job as the world has gone from physical events into digital events. And, you know, we train all of these speakers. We try to create these programs to hold somebody's rapt attention. And what I have found just amazing about this particular show, the Zodiac Lounge, is that statistically speaking, you've got somebody's attention for 8 minutes in this virtual digital world. And I'm somebody that constantly has to multitask. That's just how I am. I'm busy while I'm doing something. I sit here wrapped every Saturday night for an hour and a half. I don't move. It's a phenomenal show.
This is my guests are awesome. I have great
It's because
guests.
the host is an incredible person.
I'm also curious as hell. I have to study.
It's the curiosity. Yeah. The questions that you ask people, the topic matters that are covered. This show stands out because of that.
Well, thank you. I hope I'll continue to keep you happy and let things go on. So,
thank you, Jacqueline. So,
Corinne, I saw Corinne.
I'm gonna put Corinne on in a second, but I have a question. I'm gonna put you in the hot seat.
Okay.
As I got to know you, I've known you've had a number of different jobs over the years. You know, I find that fascinating about you.
I think I know where you're going. I will choke you. Go ahead.
No, I'm going to keep it very vague. I'm going to say, what was the most edgy and interesting job you've had beside the Zodiac Lounge?
Most edgy and interesting job that I had.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's a toss-up between two. Selling conch-shelled stuff with marijuana on the side of the road in Jamaica when I was trying to get money together to get an apartment. And having to work as a professional escort when I realized that my tuition that I earned through an academic scholarship wasn't due until the following year. so I had to pay.
Yeah,
NYU
that's
and
right. You mentioned
Juilliard
that.
and
You were an escort for a while. Yeah.
a little while.
Yeah.
But we all
Interesting.
are in one way, shape, or form. But
That's
I
true.
had two marketable skills.
Mhm.
And the other one was cooking, and I would have to work in a restaurant and not have enough time to keep up a 4.0 in order to be eligible for the grant. So that's what I did. And that was healing, believe it or not.
Right. Yeah, you've led a fascinating life, and you've just done so many different things, and I think you
Necessity is the
draw
mother of
on
invention.
all those experiences. Oh, there she is.
Cookie!
Hey! Hi,
What's up,
hi,
Cookie
Anthony. You know I
Monster?
love you.
What's up, baby? You look great.
Oh, please, I'm horrible here in Cali. Let's see. I would have to say the biggest experience I had with Anthony was the first time we met.
Uh,
I
Why don't you
basically what?
okay. Tell as much as you want. I'm just going to sit back and listen.
Well, I was kind of talked into going to see Anthony, and I had to make an appointment and all this other nonsense from a mutual acquaintance of ours. Her name's Elsa. And I was ready to go in there, give him my money, and leave.
You could have
So
did
I
that.
basically tripped down his steps, walked in. I had, excuse my French, the biggest bitch face in the world. I sat there with him. He lit a cigarette. I lit mine. And 3 minutes into it, he says, so are you going to stop being a bitch and let me in, or you don't want a reading?
I was like, I really don't need to do this.
Right. He was like, I don't need this. Thank you very much. And I was like, huh, okay. Next thing you know, after the reading, we're there for what, like 2-3 hours? Just
That's how it was
talking.
there. Yeah.
It,
Did you
time
say
meant nothing.
long enough
in
for the
Zodiac.
speakeasy? Did you hang out late that day, or?
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah. When the loons started coming in.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about the Zodiac Lounge is like time ceased.
There was
to
no
exist.
time.
There was none.
Yep.
So you could be there for an hour, 3 hours, 5 hours. It felt like a second, a minute. It didn't matter. And then he told me
energy.
exactly. And not only what you wrote on the walls and you painted over it. Yeah, I remember all that. You know, and yep. And we've been we've known each other now over 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, my kids used to go in there and I'd be like, hey, be careful. And he says, listen, no, leave them alone. They're okay.
Yeah.
You know, and they call him Uncle Trouble.
You were probably afraid of me with them, but no,
no, never you. But, you know, Erica and whatever, you know, my kids. But everything Anthony has ever told me has come true.
Well, thank you.
Well, no. It's not a thank you. Okay? All right? No, I try to get back to the East Coast. He says, how about California? What do you think about California? I was like, no, I'm not going to California.
And
where am I?
California.
California.
Well, I told you. You could have saved a lot of time.
Well, you know what, whatever. You always say that to me. But, you know, I don't know. He's the love of my life of my love. I've always loved Anthony. He has a humongous heart. Great sense of humor, intelligent beyond reason, and a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, but
which is awesome.
That's part of the deal. I'm getting 1,000 texts. I hope the house isn't burning down.
Yeah, no, it's not. Don't say that.
Okay, good. Everybody's giving me excuses why they're not here. But thank you for that memory. I remember you stumbling down the stairs with a giant djembe that I love. I still have it.
Really?
In the New Jersey office, yeah.
Oh, wow.
That beautiful white goat skin that was all cut and fringe. It was fabulous. So it's still alive and still booms. I still play it.
Aww.
But it was also a place of teaching where I did raise groups of people. And
I was one of them.
Angela said nothing is burning yet. Oh, that's good. It means because Angela was pretty nuts. Scott Wass wants to come
Yeah.
on. Other
Yes,
people, yeah, wow.
I want to bring you on.
Take
Yeah,
a
I
look
want to
at
bring
some
him
of
on
these
because he's going to be a guest next week
on
or the
6th,
week after.
on
The
March
6th.
6th.
Beautiful.
Well, I love you. Mwah. And thank you. I'm so happy to see the Zodiac.
I am too. Just come back every week.
Of course. I tried. The time difference, though, kills me. I forget.
You can
Because you
move.
say 7, and in my head it's 7, and it's not.
Well, time to start day drinking and pretend it's 7 o'clock in Cali.
You know, got to do something. I love you.
I love you too, sweetie. Thank you.
Mwah.
Thank you, Corinne, for
Bye.
coming.
Blessed
Thank
be.
you. Blessed be. So we're going to bring Scott Wass on in a second. But first, I have 2 questions for you. One is, I want to also point out that you're going to be teaching mediumship. And I think
Yes.
that's a topic that came up
Yeah.
a couple of times tonight.
to
And I particularly want to take your course as well. And I think it's very exciting. So,
Well, what I was thinking about doing with mediumship would be a 1 lesson. When I sit medium, I go through a visualization process. And I bring myself up a flight of stairs, through a door, into a place of nature. And then I visualize a specific scene, and there's always a little bridge going over a brook, and then you see lights in the forest, and one of the lights comes over, and it's the person. On the rare occasion, when my client is able, and I know that they're stable enough to go there with me, I'll bring them along. And what's really fascinating is that we will see the same loved one, but they will get a different story from them than I did. So they had something specific to say to them, and then other things to say to me that would be best imparted by a third party to the person. So I was going to do a 1-shot class where I would teach pranic breathing and then guide people through the meditation. There's an incantation that has to be repeated 3 times to make those worlds kind of collide. And then people can talk about what they've experienced once they got there. But it's more about utilizing it again in the future. It's sort of like learning the mechanics of it. The other thing that I do is a 5-part course in mediumship.
wow.
And I've got to clean it up a little bit because I am a bit sarcastic. So like my chapter titles are a little irreverent. I mean, like, who's your daddy? That's what I name a title. So there are some people that take it a little bit more reverently than I do. But it's really about explaining what an entity, what a discarnate spirit is, what they feel, what they communicate. And that is information that I know firsthand because they've told me and it was validated by my clients. So I believe that information. When they tell me about dead school, what they have to learn before they can actually communicate. I just went through that with my partner because he passed in May, and Glenn Klausner was my guest one night. He's a medium, and he actually connected with him about a hysterical incident that happened between the 2 of us that nobody really knew but us. He was so right on the money. And then I spoke to him the following day and thanked him for that. And he said, well, wait, I got more. And he was just telling me things that were so specific that he couldn't have gotten the information without connecting with Christian. So it's about understanding the symbolic language. When we connect with a spirit, they show us things in symbols. It isn't like just having a conversation. So if I'm encountering somebody that's holding a white flower in their left hand is their receptive hand, usually.
Right.
And in my symbolic dialect of that language, that means that they are accepting the living person's remorse for anything that they might be remorseful if they treated them badly before they died and didn't get a chance to reconcile. So they're letting me know when I see that white flower in their left hand that they're accepting their remorse, and then they usually hold it to their heart. If I'm feeling a big crack in my head, that means that somebody died violently. Maybe not from a head wound, but that's the symbol that they send to me. And every medium has a different dialect. And I see Scott.
Hi, Scott. And I should mention, now Scott is going to be a guest on Anthony's show. He's a phenomenal psychic, and he makes amazing wands, magical wands.
Which we're going to be featuring, and we're also going to have him do a trunk show at Astro West Mineral Gallery.
Beautiful.
So that's
very excited.
Me too.
And also, He will also be reading for Esoteric New York as soon as we get our scheduling service
Oh, cool.
up.
So
we're
on the
excited
chat,
about
maybe
that.
we could do readings in the second half of the show, Scott. What do you say?
I love it. Let's do it.
Dazzle?
Definitely. I'm in. And
That
I'm
could be
so
a
happy
lot.
to be part of the family.
Well, you're very
Absolutely.
welcome, brother.
Thank you. So I was just saying in the comments that I love how you mesh everything together and you make it pure and your own. So it's like you incorporate everything that resonates with you. And that's how I do things. And I think that's a beautiful thing. You know,
And
it's like,
something that we can teach other people how to do.
yes, totally.
That's part of my technique when I'm training people. It's about keeping it specific, but also learning how to share it as a group work when we have to focus as a group. But that's
Yes,
the only thing that
totally.
really makes it come alive is when it means something to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I got that
Totally.
from you in our first conversation, our first phone conversation. It's like, okay, this guy's cool. And then when you came up to meet me that day,
Yeah, that
I
was
like, all right,
awesome.
definitely cool.
That was amazing. And the
Yeah.
shop is amazing. I'm like,
Shop is beautiful. Yeah.
if you have the classes there, I think that would be really good.
Yeah, downstairs. That's where I want to do them, and then because I
Yeah.
have that little stage area, and then we can crowdcast them right from there.
So it's like already set up.
Yeah. So you might want to teach a class in wand making because you make beautiful wands.
Great.
I would be honored, definitely. I
That
would
would be
love
so
that.
cool.
Totally.
That would be very.
And I'm, happy to meet you as well.
So the two Scots,
Yes,
Yeah,
the
this
two
is
Scots.
Pair of Scots
Yeah.
and Anthony on the screen.
I finally get to see a face with the voice.
right. The
Once
face
I
and the
heard your
voice.
voice, I knew it was you, Scott. You have a beautiful voice, like
Oh,
very
thank you.
nice. Yeah, definitely a radio voice. Not that anything's radio now, but it has that quality,
Right.
Hypnotic. Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
So
now you learned about the Zodiac Lounge, Scott Wass.
Yes, I did, and it was very interesting. And all the stuff about you, I didn't know all of that.
What?
Like the stores and all the carrying, the fun stuff. I definitely would have been, I was
yeah.
around in the city back in those times, but I was like doing different things. I wasn't uptown. I was downtown.
So now
Yeah.
we're going to have to start doing circuit parties.
Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I
There's a
love
lot
that
of abandoned
idea.
storefronts. That's one thing we could take advantage of is all these
that's right.
closed stores. We can sort of find a way in through this, through the alley.
Totally.
Break in
And
a
the
window,
pop-up,
Yeah.
the pop-up was a really great idea.
4 hours only because we need time to get it started, get a good party rolling, and then get out before the cops
And then
show
get
up.
out.
Yep. And then we
good
have
old
another
New
one
York
set
way.
up where the party continues.
Exactly. The hush hush after hours, it's called.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Totally. Well, it's so nice to seeing you guys and being here and being a part of it. And you let me know in the second half when you want me to come on, and I'll do some readings with you.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, cool.
totally. All right, bless.
All right.
Okay,
bless you.
Scott. Good
Thanks
seeing
for
you.
coming.
Thanks.
Great
Bye-bye.
So is Sam Gabrielle dare to show her face? Another one of my students from that same fearless group. Or do we
Anyone
have other
else wants to come on? Just let us know in the chat. In the meantime, I have another question. When I
Okay.
first met you, you mentioned that you were a Mason,
Yeah.
and I find that fascinating. And maybe you could talk a little bit about. Oh, Kelly wants to come on. Absolutely. Okay, I'll bring you on in a second, Kelly. Tell us about how you got into become a Mason, and you mentioned how back in the day, the Masons. I remember this vividly, where you could put a Masonic letter, and if they opened your luggage,
Yeah.
they wouldn't bother it.
Right. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Again, this is a word that keeps on coming up in my life. Reluctant. I was reluctantly made a Mason. I did not want to be a Mason. I was doing readings and word got around, and then this guy came into the store. I probably shouldn't mention his name because I'm sure that he's still a Mason, and I don't want anybody to get in trouble. But he was just saying, I'd like to bring you in to the lodge. I'd like to initiate you into Masonry. And I was like, well, I already have a gym membership at Equinox.
Yeah.
And I have band practice 2 nights a week. Thanks, but I'm kind of booked. I was just trying to be nice. But he was very persistent. And then he said, well, we're all going to have to come to your home. I was like, no, you're not coming. I don't know who you are. You're not coming. I'm not inviting you into my house. You could be crazy for all I know. We can meet for dinner. So we went out to dinner. And I learned a little bit more about Masonry through him and through another good friend of mine who actually told him he should observe me and then approach me if he thought I was worthwhile. And I just didn't want to be a Mason because it wasn't, to me, it wasn't real. It's hierarchical. Everybody gets a turn at being the worshipful master, which is the turn. That's the title. I'm laughing because it reminds me of role play. But if anybody ever referred to me as worshipful master, they better have about $1,000 in their other hand if they want me to play that game. But I just wasn't interested. I said, but I'll tell you what. I said, I'll go for the initiation, but you have to also bring my dear friend who loves climbing ladders and loves all this stuff, because I'm not going to last. I'm telling you right now, I don't care what you do. You can razzle dazzle me from morning till night. I'm not going to stick around. I don't agree with the structure. And I said, but he does, and you will love him. So I did go, and they brought him in. Otherwise, I wouldn't have submitted for the initiation. And after about a year, I said sayonara, but my friend stayed on and eventually became worshipful master. And now he's just like a retired Mason. It's like they kind of turned into what our senators turned into. They become lobbyists or something, where they're still connected and have some way to manipulate legislation. I just wasn't interested in it. It wasn't the real deal. And they had the most esoteric lodge in the whole chapter in New York. But it wasn't enough. It had become corrupted. Most of the people there didn't even believe or observe it. They just did it because they wanted that document to put on top of their luggage, to put inside their luggage, so that when they were opened in customs, they would not be inspected.
Yeah, the West 23rd Street, Deborah says.
That's where I was, yeah.
That's an amazing building.
I'm not going to say which lodge I belong to, because there are several in that building. Beautiful building, beautiful space. Beautiful music. They had a pipe organ. They had a guy playing flute when I was being initiated. It was very theatrical, very lovely, but just wasn't for me.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to tour that building, and it's really stunning.
Spectacular.
Yeah, when I was doing the book, they gave me a tour, and it really, in fact, a lot of Hollywood films have been filmed in there, including Devil's Advocate. Yeah, it's really, and it has that energy, similar to the one in Alexandria, Virginia.
Yeah. When you were in that building, did they show you the Ionic room with the big black and white checkered floor?
No, I didn't see that.
It's like a blue room with these huge marble. Right. Yeah, that was the room that I was initiated, and they have I think a 15 rank pipe organ in there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Kelly's back on. Good. I'm going to bring her on. Yeah, and I know it just was one of these things where you wouldn't. I mean, West 23rd, it's sort of a commercial area,
right? Yeah.
And you're looking. It looks like a regular commercial building. When you go in, you're like, oh my God, it's. Oh, hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hey.
Where's Lola? Where's your dog?
Over here with my niece. Charlotte, you want to bring Lola over here?
Pick her up. Yeah.
Come here.
Kelly just got a new dog.
I did.
Let's see the dog.
Hold that for Kiki. Come here.
Is Kelly one of your students, or?
Hi.
She's a client. I do.
A client. Okay. Excellent.
Hi, everybody. This is Lola. It's my brand new little puppy.
Very sweet. And Kelly's been coming to me for readings for
years.
How many years?
Wow.
Many years.
Many years. I want to
and took some classes. Actually, we met.
That's how we met. Was I joined his class?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful.
And what did you think? Was it worth it? Was it worth the time?
Absolutely. I learned a lot. It taught me a lot, and I loved all your classes and all your work, and you've read for me for years now. So I'm very lucky. And not amazing, but also just absolutely fabulous.
Oh yeah. Well, you are fabulous, and we have to keep each other's fabulosity going. Stacy Chuli said she went to homeopathy school in that building, in the Masonic Lodge building on 23rd Street.
Really? Wow. Yeah. Interesting. Oh yeah.
So
Huh.
So now you found out more about Uncle Trouble tonight than some dirty laundry was aired in front of you, Kelly.
It was great. I was like, oh, I heard like some of the stuff I knew, and then some of it
You've seen me do worse things, though.
I have.
Kelly's like one of us. She's no joke.
No, well, that's the thing. I hear you talking, and I'm like, Anthony's really behaving himself.
Yeah, I'm really good.
I love it.
I've been trying to control my mouth since I'm a kid. I think I can do it for like 90 minutes now in a row, almost.
I'm
a couple of F-bombs.
Yeah. Like, I'm sitting here listening. I'm like, wow, Anthony. That's as long as there's no bees around, because you know what we call them.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm allergic to them, so I panicked. I almost got. We were hanging out. She was in terrible shape. We were in my office. I have this wonderful office in Montclair, New Jersey, but it was spring, and we went around to get some fresh air and have a smoke and commiserate. And I had her, and I was petting her and comforting her. I think she broke up with some idiot, and then all of a sudden, I just let out this yelp, and I dropped this C-bomb at the top of my lungs, and she said, "Did you just call that bee a?" And I'm like, yes, I did. And somebody was parking their car and did not get out. Yeah, I think she might have thought I was talking to her.
We were laughing our butts off. Great.
Yeah, but here I am trying to be, the healing guru and be all like spiritual and shit and try to get you into a better place. And then my truck driver mouth starts up.
You know what? That put me in a better place.
Oh, good. See,
really
there's value. There's value to a filthy mouth.
Absolutely. Well, I just wanted to come on and say hi. I loved hearing your stories tonight and seeing how open you were. I loved it, and I'm so proud of you.
Well, thank you. It's not easy being this expository in public, because I'm just realizing now what we spoke about earlier in the show, and I'll probably shoot myself once we're off the air.
No, you know what? I'm so proud of you. Loved hearing everything. And
well, we have to realize that when something smashes into our life and changes it all at once, our life, we can't say, I've heard people say, why am I going through this? It's like, you're not going through it. You went through it. It already happened. Now you have to go forward. And it's easier to do when it's something devastating, like a loss. But it's the little things that happen incrementally that change who you are, that are the ones that sneak up on you, because all of a sudden you feel like a stranger in your own life and you can't figure out why. That's why the underworld, the chthonic energy is so important, to go into that unconscious mind of ours and discover what it is that's disturbing us, and then elevate it into the light with as much reverence and dignity as we can. That's why those 4 paintings, I found out the 4 things that were making me like horrible. So I got them out of me and onto another object, and they're still in the closet. I haven't looked at them in years, but I may need to reacquaint myself with that, to remind myself that I was strong enough to get through something. And our conversations, Kelly, often kind of venture into that territory, which is why I love seeing you. I love whenever you visit. So
I love talking to you. And I started off taking classes, and we developed
a friendship,
like a great friendship.
We become friends, which I don't really do that often with clients. Yeah.
And I'm very lucky to have Anthony in my life and as someone so close to me. And how he did his painting is so great, because he was able to do something most people can't do. He was able to feel his feelings and express them in an art, which I think is amazing. Because most of the time people don't do that. They keep it bottled in, they suppress it somehow, and he created something beautiful with it. That's great.
And I take that as a compliment from you, because what people might not know about Kelly is she is a dancer, so she expresses her emotions through body movement. So you understand that how cathartic it can be. How can really get that out of you. And thank you for that compliment. That's very sweet of you. I'll buy you a beer and a shot next time I see you. In the meantime, great boobs, nice bra. You look great tonight, honey.
It's not the sparkle one tonight, actually. I'm sorry to change it for you. Next time I come on, I'll bring sparkles for you, okay?
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Love you.
Okay,
I love
you, Kelly.
I don't know how to get out of the chat. Do I just end it or click out?
There you go. Sorry. I didn't mean to be so abrupt, but
that's okay, I know.
So we're going to bring Stacy on.
I would love to.
Yeah, and before we do that, actually, she may be the last guest because we were running out of time. But I'm going to ask you, while we're waiting for her to come on, what was the most transformational moment of your time running the physical Zodiac Lounge, would you say?
There were two, and they were equal. Begrudgingly beginning it. Reluctantly making it something tangible because I was so afraid to have anything tangible at that time. And what there was nothing. After I got all that angst out in the paintings, there was nothing in my life. And then the Zodiac Lounge just sort of organically emerged, and it was so full of joy and wonderful things. And then other circumstances. So that was the first thing, was reluctantly bringing it into existence because I didn't know what to expect. And then reluctantly closing it because I thought that the joy would end, and it didn't. It didn't. It stayed with me.
That's beautiful.
And
Right.
Now I'm finding the same camaraderie. I mean, instead of really interesting people walking into my door, I get to invite them on as guests.
Right.
So in a way, this is very much like the physical. I always knew that it would come back in one way or another, but I really did think that this is a part of my past that I would always love, but never experience again. And thank you, Scott, for letting it happen. So now I get to bring the interesting people to the people instead of having them just stumble or stagger through the door, depending on whatever shape they were in when they got there.
No, it's been great. I'm excited also about doing these pop-ups.
Yeah.
You know, in oh, here we go. Here's Stacy.
That's Stacy Chuli.
Hi, Stacy.
Hey, baby.
Hi.
What's up?
Nothing. How are you?
I'm good. Not as good as you.
Maybe. I think you're doing an amazing job, and I love listening to you, even though we're BFFs, so we kind of listen to each other all the time. But a lot.
Yeah. Stacy is also going to be my guest next week, talking about her own shamanic journey, which is
wonderful.
A riot.
Great.
And her experience as a homeopathist.
Yes.
And an energy healer. So talk about a transformational life.
Yeah, but yes, thank you. I'm changing subjects because I had no idea that we never talked about the Masonic Temple on 23rd Street.
Yeah, that building is amazing.
It's a beautiful building. And I went to school there, and I was so, I would just walk around and follow these little places all over, and it was really beautiful. And nobody was as into it as me because it seems that that's usually the case. But
did you feel the energy did you know that it was the Masonic? Well, yeah, there's the Masonic Lodge sign outside.
Yeah, I did. And I would be like, bah, 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 and everyone would be like, like, that's not a big deal. But it was a big deal to me, and I loved it. It was a beautiful building, and I would always go off on break and find somewhere to go up those stairs, and it was really a cool spot.
The tavern, when you're looking at the building, the tavern to the left was another place, because after every meeting, we would all have to, wait to hear this one, dress up in black tie and go to that broke down tavern. And I was like, you're not going to make me put my Donna Karen tux on. And I would have to do it, so I would bring it in a backpack because I got the travel one that doesn't wrinkle. And then I would just go to the bathroom and put my shorts and my ripped up t-shirt back on and leave. But yeah, they would make us go. We would have to meet in black tie and then go to the tavern like penguins.
We'll be talking about that tomorrow.
Okay, we could do that. We could do that because we're going to hang out tomorrow finally. Scott Watson said he loves the pop-up idea. Good. We're going to make this happen.
Yep.
And we're going to do it in every borough.
Even Queens.
Yep, the city needs it for sure.
Yeah. Somebody has to start gathering again. And if we leave it up to them, I mean, I'm going to be 70 next year. What do I have? 2 weeks? I don't have. It's let's step on the gas with this opening up society again, please.
Let's get on with it. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you. And I look forward to hosting you next week and seeing you tomorrow.
Me too. I look forward.
Seeing you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, Stacey. Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, we're running out of time. We're almost at the end. Reverend Deborah says, bring it to Florida. We are open.
Oh, yeah. We can do
Okay.
a traveling show.
Why not?
We just get a big old covered wagon and go through the Southwest, too.
Yeah, bring it on the road. The Zodiac Lounge on the road. Well, Anthony, it's been a pleasure speaking to you.
It was fun talking about this. I hope I didn't bore anybody with my hip-hop down memory lane, because it has been fun. But all of those things have stayed with me, and maybe that's something that I've learned that I can pass along. When we create joy, when we create magic, it has nothing to do with the tools we use or the room or the environment we did it. Once we did it, we own it. It comes with us. And we all need to do that and share it and teach other people how to make it. So if that's the one thing that I've learned through all this, that would be it. And I encourage everybody to just think about that in that context, and breathe some life into it.
And you're an elder now. You're an elder now in the community. And I think you mentioned also, just to end on this note, that, in certain cultures, the elders would sort of gather around in a place like the Zodiac Lounge.
Well,
and I think it's fascinating now.
Years ago, I wrote a term paper on the social significance of the front porch in the rural South. And what fascinated me, because I went down there on a motorcycle with hair, long blue hair, big, crazy, wild, dark blue hair. So they didn't exactly warm up to me right away in Mississippi. But eventually they did when they got to know me and realized that I was sincere. But the general stores are the things that's where I learned the most. I learned the etiquette of the front porch. It's a very different thing. It's kind of like small corner taverns in the city, where it's intimate, but not as intimate as your house and not as public as the street. But where I learned the most was in the general stores on the weekend nights, because all the elders would hang out there, and they'd have their mason jars and whatever they were smoking, and they would gather around and they would talk among themselves, and then start talking to the younger generation about what they've learned, about the history of the community, things to be proud of, mistakes that the community made and then recovered from. There was remorse, but also pride in being able to have resolved an issue. There's no need to erase it from history. There's no room for shame. We have to accept our flaws and know that, and be humble and know that we corrected them. But that's what really made me think about my future. Someday I was going to be an elder, and my responsibility is to pass along whatever I learned. It's not about what I can do while I'm here. It's what I learned that made my life magical, that made my life so instructive. The hardest lessons have been the most instructive, and I have the greatest reverence for them. And once you get through your fear and your pain, you hold them so dear to you because you have learned so much from them. And now pass those lessons on so that the next person doesn't have to go through all the blind alleys and dead ends that you did. Give them the shortcut to the goal. That's why I think it's important for elders in this community to come out and be instructive freely. Not for self-aggrandizement, not for money. This is our legacy. This is our legacy. Our knowledge is our legacy. We must pass that along, because that spark stays alive.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing all of your experiences with us tonight and throughout the show. We look forward to seeing you next week for the 24th Century General Store.
God only knows what's going to happen then, but thank you for having me. It was fun to be a guest, I think. I don't like it, but I could do it. So now I'll be a better host to the guests that I have. But thank you, Scott, for doing this. I really appreciate it, for giving me this platform to host the show, but also for having me on tonight. So
absolutely, and thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you all next week.